Hello, this is Jeremy Wright, Associate Pastor of the Westside Missionary Baptist Church, and we have another video here. Now, I've been doing videos about a little more basic things, but this one is about a current situation going on in the culture. As you may know, due to the coronavirus, we've been under these lockdowns and they're going back to school now. And this has caused some consternation from many teachers and other people like that. Now, before we go on, you may remember back, and we're going to link to that video in here somewhere, we talked about a professor who was against, this is a Harvard professor, who was against homeschooling and was against the parents having much of a role in education of the children. Well, the Bible says a completely different thing. In Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 6, the Bible says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." Now, this is very important for you as a Christian parent, especially as a Christian parent, that you need to train up your child in the way he should go, and then when he is old, he will not depart from it. That's the thing about raising children. You start out, you have complete control over a child. When they're born, they're tiny little babies, and they cannot do anything. An infant is a helpless little creature that has to be taken care of completely and utterly. My wife thought saying creature was kind of funny. I could have said a helpless little person, and they are a little person. And as they get older, they become more and more and more independent. And that's the goal for your children, is that they will eventually grow up, become adults, and then live on their own successfully. Now, depending on what your understanding of the word success is, my understanding of the word success is to achieve your goal. And if you're going to achieve your goal, my goal, and hopefully my children's goal, will be to serve God. And that'll be their main goal. And then they're, have other goals behind them. And with my child, I want her to succeed in whatever she attempts to do. And, she plays the cello and she wants to play in an orchestra. And I hope completely that that's what she gets to do. Because that's what she wants and that's what I want for her. And that's the normal way that parents should be. We should want what's best for our children. Now, back to the school system. As I said, it is our job to teach our children. My job. You have children, it's your job. It's not the school's job. It's not some government agency. It's not some government official. It is your job. And especially if you're a Christian parent. To hammer this home a little bit more, training up a child in the way he should go is a long process, a years-long process. You start when they're a baby, a little tiny baby that can't do anything, and the whole time you're training that baby in what they need to be. As they get older, you teach them, hey, we don't hit other people. We don't steal from other people, when they take toys. We're teaching them not to steal. We're teaching them morality every day. Every day we're teaching them morality. Every day we're pushing morality into their heads. And as they get older and older and older, these morality lessons become more and more complicated. With a little baby, with a toddler, it's no, you don't take things from other people. But with a 17-year-old, it's a completely different discussion on morality, and much further into it, much deeper. And you should develop a relationship with your child over the years where you can tell them these deeper truths, especially if you're a Christian parent. Now, I personally was homeschooled, and probably the best thing that ever happened to me was that I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled from 9th grade through the rest of high school until I graduated. I got a high school diploma. Now, this high school diploma was not recognized by the United States Air Force, which is strange because we got it from the state of Florida, so I don't know. They didn't recognize it. So, just the way it is. The Lord had a plan for me, and He sent me to do what I'm supposed to do. And this is part of what I'm supposed to do as a preacher. I'm supposed to proclaim the truth. That's what a preacher does. So teachers, and I personally never had a really good teacher until my mother started teaching me in high school. So that means I got to high school without having a good teacher. And I was switched over to a Christian school because we didn't know enough. Me and my brother, we switched to a Christian school and we were way behind. Way, way, way behind. Now people talk about Christian schools like their education value is not very good. The education value at the Christian school I went to was 2 to 3 times better than the public school. At least. It was much, much higher education value than the public school. I have a real problem with public schools because they completely and utterly failed to give me anything worthwhile. I have no knowledge from public schools. Personally, I've never really trusted teachers. I've never really trusted teachers. And that comes out in the way I talk about them sometimes. And I'm trying not to be biased here, but something has come out recently. This was not what I was going to talk about, but I heard this, and then I read this, and I was amazed. So we get a little more on my feeling on teachers, then we'll get to these other things. So they, I thought that they must be teaching me what I needed to know when I was in school. I thought, yeah, these teachers, they're showing me the right way. They're going to teach me. I'm going to know what I need to know. But they weren't. They were not teaching me what I needed to know. I didn't know how to read when I got to 9th grade. My mother had to teach me how to read. I was reading on like a 6th grade reading level or something like that. It was terrible. But now I can read. I read books all the time now. I read the Iliad recently, and I've been reading through a pretty complicated book called The History of the Peloponnesian War. My goodness, it's hard to read. It's written by somebody from that era, and then it was translated over the years. So it's a tough read, but it's pretty interesting. And so I can read pretty successfully now. I can take the Bible, I can read it, and I can explain to somebody what it means. Not every single thing in the Bible, because there are things in the Bible that are even too complicated for me to understand. There are things in the Bible that people who have studied the Bible their entire lives don't quite understand. But I've gotten a lot better over the years. And I found that these teachers would go out and get trained by the colleges. And there's this kind of factory that they've produced where you go to school. And when my dad was a kid, you didn't go to kindergarten. First grade is where they started. When I went to school, there was kindergarten. Now there's pre-K, pre-K4, pre-K3. Where you go to school when you're a 3-year-old, you go to school when you're a 4-year-old. Yeah, there's all these different pre-Ks now. And you get into that system earlier and earlier and earlier. Eventually, you'll be born and there'll be a teacher in the room while you're being born just to yell, to say, oh, we got to teach this kid something. But what are they teaching them? And that's the question we need to know. And that brings me to this point. Now, like I said, I have a natural distrust of the public school system, of teachers, and of principals and all kinds of things. I went and talked to my child's assistant principal, about a test that she had taken where her answers were correct and they were marked wrong. Now, I got out peer-reviewed studies from the colleges that these schools recognize as accredited colleges and got the answer she had, but they marked it incorrect. I went to the school, talked to the assistant principal. He did not care. Not at all. Didn't care at all. We might as well not have been there. And they would not let me have a meeting with the woman that was a teacher because she couldn't do it on the day that I could do it. Now, who's paying who here? Really think about it. Who's paying who? Is she paying me? No, I'm paying her. Who's the boss? Is it the principal? Is it the school board? Or is it the parent? Very important to think about this. Now, I want you be the judge on that. Who's really in charge? The teacher, the principal, the school board, or you, the parent of that child? Who cares more about that child? The principal? The school board? Has the school board even met your child? The teacher? Or you? It's important to think about. Maybe we should investigate that. Well, I asked if I could see some of the tests. His answer to me was, why would you want to see the tests? Like I was doing something outlandish and wanting to see the test. When I was a kid, they sent the test home so your parents could see it hanging on the refrigerator. Something strange was going on. Something very strange was going on. Now, I've heard that teacher no longer teaches there, which is a good thing because she doesn't know what she's doing. Now, as we move on here, there is a teacher named Matthew R.K. He is a teacher at Philadelphia's Science Leadership Academy. By the way, it's going to come up later. He's a English teacher, just so you know beforehand. He's an English teacher. And here's one of his tweets. So this fall, this is Matthew R.K., English teacher at this Science Leadership Academy in Philadelphia. So this fall, virtual class discussions will have many potential spectators. So we'll continue on this tweet in a second. So what they're doing is you're having your class through some kind of online video system where the guys are, and you see him, like like FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it may be. I don't know what company they're going to use. I used to do something called Skype, and like that. All right, so he's worried about spectators. Now, who could spectate this? All right, who do you think could be the spectators? Now, kind of I'm sending this message out towards parents. So guess who? You're the spectator. These potential spectators. And this worries him. You're going to find out as we read on here. Says there will be many potential spectators. Parents, siblings, etc. I don't know who the etc. could be. Parents and siblings seem like most everybody that lives in a house. But maybe you got grandparents in there too. In the same room. My goodness. Now, imagine a parent and their child in the same room. It's mind-boggling. It's such an outlandish thing for a parent and a child to be in the same room. At least that's the way he seems to make it. Well, now we're going by. Well, we're going on here. Well, we will never be quite sure who is overhearing. He's starting to get a little worried here that you might hear what he's talking about. The discussions. What does this do for our equality inclusion work? Our equality inclusion work. And this is the question. That's the end of the quote here so far. There's going to be more in a minute. He's an English teacher, right? Like an English teacher. I looked this up. I went on there, looked up the faculty, found this guy, English teacher. Why is he teaching equality and inclusion? What is inclusion? What is equality? These are questions that we've been asking for thousands of years now. What is equality? What is inclusion? Inclusion is when you include people. You allow others in. Equality is when everybody has the same, whatever the equality you're looking for is. You see, it doesn't matter. You say equality of income. Well, that means everybody gets paid the same amount of money. So should I get paid the same amount of money as a guy who went through 8 years of college to be a doctor? Probably not. I didn't go through 8 years of college to be a doctor. Think about these things. Maybe it's equality of rights. Now that's something I can get behind. If we all are equal under the law, yeah, that's good. Is that what he's talking about? Well, I doubt it. And as we see, he doesn't want the parents to know, to hear, to overhear what he's talking about. Now, I don't know how that makes you feel, but that bothers me. That scares me a little bit because my child's going to go to school and the teacher doesn't want me to know what they're teaching. Now, my child's done with school and we would have probably pulled her out of school and homeschooled her, but she wanted to play the cello. And so we let her go to school for that reason. So here we see this teacher who has the gall to say that you, the parent of the child he's teaching, don't need to overhear what you're teaching that child. That I don't like that at all. Now, he's trying to push you out of a huge portion of your child's life. How much time do they spend at school? 8 hours a day? 7, 8 hours a day, something like that? Most of the year? I don't know. How much, now we've got another quote here from him. All right, we're going to start, this is the next quote, all in one line. He deleted this, by the way, but we're going to find it, we're going to put it up so you can read it. How much students depend on the somewhat, he put that in little parentheses, he's an English teacher, secure barriers of our physical classrooms to encourage vulnerability. How many of us have installed some version of what happens here stays here to help us? Pretty interesting, right? Do you want your child vulnerable to a teacher at a school? They're already a little vulnerable because they're far from you. They're in a room controlled by this guy who may or may not agree with you, who may or may not have differing views from you, who may or may not want your child to turn out to be a specific kind of person. You see, they don't like it when you teach your child to be a Christian. They don't like that. So I've kind of started doing these videos to help Christians deal with the world we live in. Because the world we live in is an unchristian place. And so we need help. Now, these teachers, I mean, it's a bothersome thing to me. It bothers me. How can teachers indoctrinate your children if you know what they're saying? How can they fill their heads with nonsense if you're listening? Well, they can't. Because you can say, wait a minute, that's not true. Now, you can mute these little Zoom classes or whatever they're doing, these virtual classes. You can mute it so that they can't hear you talking. And then I can listen to the guy and say, no, that's not true. I don't have to interrupt his class. And it doesn't seem like that's what Mr. Matthew K. is worried about here. Now we're going to go on to the next one. While conversations about race are in my wheelhouse. That's in his wheelhouse. Not English. English, not in his wheelhouse. Conversations about race, though, right in there. Right in the wheelhouse. And remain a concern in this no-wall environment. Interesting. I am mostly intrigued. I don't know why I use the word intrigued. It's weird. By the damage helicopter/snowplow parents can do in honest conversations about gender/sexuality. Now, me, if I was writing that, I would have put and sexuality. By the way, this guy's an English teacher. Just to make sure you understand, he's an English teacher. Why is he teaching you about gender and sexuality? I mean, maybe he could teach you about how words, there are genders to words. You know, like certain languages, especially, there's masculine words, feminine words, and those are genders. But he's not talking about that. You know, he's talking about boys and girls. And perhaps he's teaching them sexuality. Do you want a teacher teaching your kid about sexuality? Isn't that your job? I don't think it's their job. It's definitely not this English teacher's job. Even in a health class, this is past the pale, in my opinion. So I'm not a big fan of old Matthew K. here and his teaching about gender and sexuality. Sounds like an English teacher on the back burner. We'll learn about English later. We got to learn about this gender sexuality stuff. Now, let me just point out, there are some school districts where they teach very small children. Now, this is a high school. But there are some school teachers where they teach very small children, very small, kindergartners, first graders, second, third graders, about transgenderism. What does a 4-year-old, 5, 6, 8-year-old need to know about transgenderism? He doesn't even know anything about it. By the way, isn't that the responsibility of parents anyways? Maybe you should stay out of that, Mr. K, and let you teach your English. And now we'll go on to another tweet of his. And while conservatives, and he quoted him, conservatives, parents, conservative parents, are my chief concern. That's his chief concern. Chief is the top. It's his top concern. His greatest concern is conservative parents. I'm a conservative parent, so this seems directly at me. He goes on, though. There's a little dash here, and then he goes on. I know that the damage can come from the left, too. So he's also concerned about leftist parents. So whether you're conservative or a liberal, this guy's concerned about you. He doesn't want you involved in his class. If we are engaged in the messy work, and he used the word messy on purpose. He is an English teacher. He knows English, hopefully. The messy work of destabilizing a kid's racism, or homophobia, or transphobia. I'm imagining this is how he says it all breathlessly and crazy, because he sounds like a crazy person. How much do we want their classmates' parent piling on? Well, Matthew, and maybe he'll listen to this video. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I am a chief concern of you because I am a conservative parent. I'm also even more of a chief concern of you because I know your game. I know what you're trying to do. I know what Matthew K. wants to do. He wants to indoctrinate your child, and he wants to make a good little leftist out of him. He doesn't want him to be a Christian. There's a famous video of Bill Nye the Science Guy. He's a aeronautics engineer, but he'll tell you all about climate change. He said, "We need your children. Don't teach them to be Christians. We need your children." Who's we? Atheists? Some other thing? I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of this. My child was in his class, this Matthew K. she wouldn't be in it tomorrow. She wouldn't go to this guy's class. I'd pull her out. I would say, look at these tweets. You need to fire this guy. This guy does not need to have a job as a school teacher. He's an activist, and he's attempting to indoctrinate your children to believe what he believes. He wants your children to believe like him. His leftist dogma. Well, that's no good. That's not what teachers should be doing. Teachers like this, they're failures. They're a monster. They're an evil guy who's a problem for your children. I'm not a big fan of this. I don't like it. In Tennessee, parents were asked to sign a waiver that they would not eavesdrop on the classes. They don't want them eavesdropping. They want to sign a waiver. Sign a waiver. I won't eavesdrop on the classes. What are they hiding? What are they hiding? Be nice to know, wouldn't it? I don't know what they do in your school, but the schools that my daughter went to, they barely let you see the books. Barely. You ask them questions about what they teach, I don't know. I got a lot of I don't knows. You think they don't know? Think they really don't know? If you were the principal of a school, would you know? I would know. I would know everything. I would know what we taught. I would know all my teachers. I would know everything I could. Because that would be my job, is to run that school. And how can I run the school if I don't know anything? It's infuriating. In 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 3, the Bible says, if any man teach otherwise, and consent not to the wholesome words, even the words of our Lord Jesus Christ, and to the doctrines which is according to godliness, he is proud, knowing nothing but doting about questions and strifes. Matthew K. He's doting about questions and strifes because he's not teaching about the Lord. He doesn't know anything about it. And as we go on here, we're in verse 3. And to the doctrine which is according to godliness. I skipped back a little bit. We're in verse 4. Whereof cometh envy, strife, railings, evil, surmising. Evil surmising, that's one word. Not one word, but one thought there. Perverse disputings of men of corrupt minds, and destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness. For such withdraw thyself. Withdraw thyself. Go away from these people. These guys who think this way, who portray all this evil, who put all this evil out in the world, who say all these evil things. Withdraw from them. They've got your kids 8 hours a day. Now, the church, me, I teach kids at church. I got your kids a half hour a week. Maybe a little more if they come to Sunday school. Then we're talking about an hour and 15 minutes. And maybe the music teaches them something in churches. So what do I got your kid? 2 hours? 2 hours we're teaching about the Lord. And 8 hours every day. This nonsense. This guy believes these things enough to put them on Twitter. Now when he got some blowback, he took it off. Is he going to take it out of his mind? Is he going to stop teaching it? Probably not. This guy, Matthew K., and I'm going to make a definite statement about him. He's an evil teacher. He's a bad guy. He's a guy that is doing something that is wrong. And you, as a parent, need to investigate and know what these people are doing with your kids. They're your children. And I know I love my children. I only have one child, but I love my child. I love the children at church. And I want them to know the truth. So I give them the truth. I get this a little bit of time to tell them the truth. A little bit of time. How much time does my Matthew K. have? How much time does this Tennessee school have? Not as much as I do. And in that little bit of time, I give them the truth. And then they have to make a decision. And I hope they make the right one. Be wary of any teacher. Be wary of any principal. Be wary of anybody in a school system who does not want you to know what they are teaching your children. Be wary of that. What are they doing? Why don't they want you to know? These are the questions you need to ask. Maybe it's simple and innocent. Maybe. But if it was so simple and innocent, why wouldn't they tell us? Why wouldn't they bring it to the light of day? We may, as Christians, have to pull our children out of these public schools. Maybe the coronavirus will destroy the public school system and they'll have to revamp it. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe some of these things. But all I know is you need to watch out. You need to be aware of what they're teaching your kids. Matthew K. Yeah, he's teaching your kids about sexuality and gender and racism and homophobia and transphobia. He's trying to make them not transphobic, not homophobia. Is that what you want them teaching your kids? In an English class? I mean, in any class, that's ridiculous and outlandish. But in an English class? No, of course not. That's not what you want them teaching your kids. You need to be wary of these people. You need to check it out. As Christians, we have to train them up in the way that you go. It's our responsibility to train our children. The next generations of Christians, where do they learn that? They learn that from their parents. I'm Jeremy Wright, the Associate Pastor of the Westside Missionary Baptist Church. I hope that you enjoyed our video. I hope that you think about some of these things. And if you like our videos, then like it, comment on it, subscribe, share it with your friends, tell people to watch us, because we need more views. More people need to know about Matthew K. And you can make your own decision on whether you want your kid to go to his school. And what are the teachers in your school like? Who knows? Maybe they're just like him. They probably are, because they all got educated in the same place. All right. Until next time, I'm Jeremy Wright, and I hope to see you on the next video.